Having run for 15 seasons, Supernatural has hit a lot of different plot points. They killed characters, they brought them back, they killed them again, they touched on a lot of different mythologies, they depicted the Judeo-Christian God as both bisexual and later a villain. They went to different worlds, they showed Cupid and cannibalism and time travel, and imaginary friend lore, and kissing God's sister, and the sword and the stone, and introducing a woman named Eve who is the mother of monsters, but then also later introducing the biblical Adam, which makes me think that Eve was not supposed to be representative of the Garden of Eden Eve. And I think there were also dragons in that storyline. And then killing Death, and killing Death again, and introducing Lucifer's son, and basically making him a cinnamon roll who likes nougat, and putting the door to heaven in a sandbox at a playground, and finally making a lot of dick jokes during the Leviathan storyline. But there was always one thing that I thought they were leading up to that they never did. And that would be using Dean as Castiel's vessel. Temporarily. Let me explain. The topic of angels as celestial beings who are not inherently tied to a specific physical form or even gender has been a recurring theme throughout the show.
My people skills are rusty. Pardon me, but I have spent the last year as a multidimensional wavelength of celestial intent.
In season 4, we see Castiel temporarily inhabit Claire Novak, Jimmy's young daughter, and the idea of Michael and Lucifer inhabiting other vessels besides Sam and Dean, their true swords, was a recurring important plot point. And in one season, we see Lucifer even jump around between vessels, at one point inhabiting the President of the United States, which is how Jack was conceived. And when we go to the alternate reality, we see Michael in just an entirely non-Winchester vessel. When we first meet Raphael, he is in a male vessel. Actually, we meet his vessel first, and his vessel is basically brain dead. And then later when we see Raphael again, he's in a female vessel. And when we first meet Hannah, she's in a female vessel, and she clearly has a thing for Cass too. But then she gives that vessel back to her family, and when we see Hannah again, she's in a male vessel this time. And I just think it's interesting, and it helps to further the angels as energy beings dynamic when you see them not just in different vessels, but in different gender vessels. We, the audience, get to see just how fluid physical identity and even gender are to angels. And this could play into a Destiel dynamic, but it doesn't have to. And I'm going to kind of present it both ways. I'm going to show how this could contribute to a Destiel dynamic, or how this could present as just an entirely platonic dynamic. But the episode that really hammered home the whole Dean as Castiel's vessel idea to me, and really made me think that at some point they were going to do this, was the season 12 episode, Lily Sunder Has Some Regrets. It's a pretty good episode. And Alicia Witt is in so many Christmas Hallmark movies that it was a lot of fun to see her in something that had a bit of action. And she was wearing an eye patch. But anyway, there are two very specific things that happen in this episode. One being that we see Castiel in a female vessel.
Castiel, are we all here?
Yes.
The other thing that happens in this episode is the conversation in the car about Benjamin.
Long ago, he found a powerfully devout vessel in Madrid, and her faith, she gave him everything, her trust, her body.
this scene is most commonly noted for being a classic Dean and Cass bicker, like an old married couple scene.
Wow, this Benjamin seems like he's pretty cool. Like he wouldn't make any half-cocked, knee-jerk choices.
Yeah, you know what I like about him is that he's sarcastic, but he's thoughtful and appreciative, too.
What is that supposed to mean? Okay.
But I took a little bit more notice to the statements about Benjamin. The first thing being that Benjamin seems to prefer male pronouns despite being inside a female body.
Wait, so Benjamin's a woman?
Benjamin is an angel. His vessel is a woman.
And Castiel emphasizes that no, the vessel is a woman, but Benjamin is an angel. And then the second thing specifically is Benjamin's relationship with his vessel. How meaningful and one might say profound their bond is for her to essentially give Benjamin her trust and her body, and the fact that they were friends.
It's more than that. She's not just his vessel. She's
his friend.
Yeah.
I thought that they were setting up an instance where Sam and Dean would need an angel on their side for a fight, maybe a fight against another angel, but something would happen to Castiel's vessel, so he would be unable to take a physical form. So in order to save the day, Dean would give his consent for Castiel to use his body as a vessel, and then they would win the fight and use angel healing to repair Castiel's regular body. And that would really be just a massive gesture of faith and trust and even love on Dean's part. And it would really resolve that storyline and that complaint that Cass had about Dean not being thoughtful or appreciative of everything that Cass has done for him. And while I don't think that this idea is inherently a Destiel thing, it definitely could have been. And I know that people in the fandom like to debate a lot about Dean's sexuality, but let's look at this from the perspective that Dean is entirely straight. So with that in mind, this type of scene where he is Castiel's vessel really kind of separates him from the idea that Castiel is a man. It reinforces the concept that Castiel has no gender. Castiel is a celestial energy being. And actually, when we, the audience, saw Castiel's female vessel, I also really thought that through like a time travel or some sort of magic, Supernatural could have figured out something. They've done a ton of weird things. But somehow Dean would see Castiel in that female vessel and it would throw him for a mental loop. But either way, Dean's realization that Castiel is not tied to a specific physical form or gender would lead to either overt romantic overtones or just increased Destiel subtext for those who are looking for it. If Dean had become Castiel's vessel, even temporarily, you would have gotten the whole Castiel is inside Dean double entendre that I think fans would have gotten a lot of meme and GIF mileage out of. And it's also a really serious gesture of trust and intimacy and even gratitude. And I think this is something that Castiel would have really valued, because it would have been Dean showing his feelings, whether romantic or platonic, but showing his feelings through action. Because we know that Dean, as a character, is not a words and emotion type of person. He is very action-oriented. And this would have been a way for him to show that he really does appreciate and trust Castiel. And it wouldn't have even needed to happen that episode. That whole push and pull of Dean and Cass fight, and Dean says get out, and then Cass continues to make sacrifices for Dean. That continues for years. So they could have used this plot point at any moment that they would have decided to resolve that conflict. But they didn't. It also would have been a lot of fun to see Jensen play Cass for at least part of an episode. I feel like the cast would have had a lot of fun with that. At the time I'm filming and hopefully posting this, the finale is only a couple of days away. And based on the events of the past couple episodes, I don't think we're going to get to see Dean as Castiel's vessel at this point. Was also an important plot point. Implautant. That does sound like it could be a word. Or how it could play into just an entirely platonic I'm getting so excited about the topic that I'm just stumbling over my words and making this into a mess. Can't spell mess without me.